Hi everyone, welcome to InfoSyntax. Before you get started this course, let me quickly show you what we will get knowledge from this course. Chapter 1, I will give you the details about the content. What are the topics we will cover on this chapter? In this chapter, we will cover introduction of SQL Server and how can you set up the SQL Server in your local machine, that is SQL Server setup. Then after we will discuss about SQL and its different type of sub-language such as data query language, data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, transaction control language, and end of this chapter we will discuss about the summary. At the last of this video, I will share the link with you and we need to complete your mock test. Now we will move to our slide to understand the introduction of Microsoft SQL Server. SQL Server is an object relational database management system. Object means table, index, view, trigger, etc. MySQL also support transaction query and the main focus to handle the transaction. Transaction SQL short form we can call TSQL. I will share the knowledge about the transaction SQL on upcoming session. It is support both GUI and command-based software. Developer can access the database very easily by graphics user interface, that is SSMS, and as well as if you want to access the database through the command line, that facility also provided by Microsoft SQL Server. Based on your comfortable, you can choose any one of these. SQL statements are not case sensitive. That means we can write your query on any case of letter such as uppercase, lowercase, or intermix of uppercase and lowercase. We will see on this on our database when we will cover the DQL. It is developed by Microsoft company. Now you know the introduction of SQL Server. Now time to set up the SQL Server on our local machine. So please follow the steps to install the SQL Server on your system. So here the SQL Server setup. We will move to our local system to know the way to install the SQL Server. Now I will open Chrome browser on my system. Then after I will type SQL Server download. Then after I will click on the first link which is belongs to Microsoft. Once the page is loaded, just go to the developer. Here SQL Server 2022 developer is fully featured free edition. Developer edition is the free edition, so you can use for the test your database in non-production environment. Then click on download now. Setup file will be download into your local system. Once it download, just close the browser. Then after go to your download folder. Here open your setup file. Then after allow to install this software into your device, just click on yes button. Then installation wizard will be open. Here we need to choose the basic. Then we can read the agreement of this software. Then click on accept button. We can see installation location will be your C drive inside the program file. Then after Microsoft SQL Server folder. Here no need to change anything and we need to click on install button. It will take some time to download all these packages from Microsoft side. So it will take almost 5 to 10 minutes depend upon your internet speed. I will catch you after some time once the download is completed. Now our download is completed. Proceeding for the installation. It has downloaded almost 1.2 GB data and to record almost 8.8 GB space in your hard drive to the install SQL Server 2022 developer edition. It may take some time to complete the installation. This developer edition is completely free. There is no need to pay anything. Now installation has completed successfully in our system. You can see on our screen. This is our connection string of our local database. The second where the log is stored in our system. This is our SQL Server engine. The last is our resources folder. Now this is command based SQL Server is installed in our system. Now we will install GUI for SQL Server, that is SSMS. So here we will click on the install button. So it will move to download page of SSMS. So here we will click on free download for SQL Server Management Studio. It will take a few minutes time. Meanwhile, we will close our installation wizard. Now SSMS is downloaded in our system. So here I will go to the download folder and after I will install SSMS. I will open the SSMS setup file. Now Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio wizard is open. Now you can see setup file is open. Now here we will keep it as it is installation location. Then after we will click on the install button. Once you click on the install button, then we need to give the permission to install the software to your system. It will take some time. We will wait and after we will connect again. Now the installation process is completed. We can close the widgets. Now go to the start button. Here type SSMS. Then we will get the application. Just click on that. Now our SSMS GUI is open. Now the pop-up is coming on this screen. The server type database engine, and it has other details also, but here we will connect database engine, and this is our server name. And authentication, we will choose the Windows authentication. The authentication, it will identify the user who has the access or not, and based on the access it will connect to the database engine. It has a different type of authentication such as Windows authentication, SQL Server authentication, and lot more. On our case, we will choose Windows authentication. Then after we will connect to the server by click on the connect button. You can see our database is connected to our local database engine. So if you require more understanding on SQL Server type and different types of authentication, so please comment on this video, so it will inspire me to make one separate video for this. Next slide, we will understand SQL. You know the introduction of SQL and also install the software on your machine. Let's understand what is SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It has 5 different sub-languages such as Data Query Language, that is DQL, Data Definition Language, that is DDL, Data Manipulation Language, that is DML, Data Control Language, that is DCL, and the final one, Transaction Control Language, that is TCL. We will cover each sub-language on our next slide or our upcoming slide. Let's first understand the first sub-language, Data Query Language. Data Query Language, that also we can call as DQL. DQL is used for retrieve data from a database. Select statement belongs to DQL sub-language. The select statement in SQL is used to retrieve data from database and retrieve data stored in the result of table. It's called result set. Now we have understand what is DQL. Now we will understand the syntax of DQL statement. Select, then after star or column name, that is column 1, column 2, column 3, and number of column from the table name. Now I will describe the table structure like this. It has some column as well as some row. If you retrieve all the columns data, so that time we will use star. Otherwise we will use the column name. Now we will discuss the same on SSMS. I will go to the start button. Then after I will type SSMS. Then after I will hit the enter button. So then after our SQL Server GUI will be open. The authentication pop-up is appeared on my screen. So here SQL Server type. It has different server, but here we will choose database engine. Then after my server name, that is my local server name. Then authentication is there, and it has one drop down. In this drop down, different type of authentication are present. Here Windows authentication, SQL Server authentication, and other authentication are also there. For my case, I will choose Windows authentication to connecting the server. If you want to know about the server type and different type of authentication present in SQL Server, then please comment on this video, so I will make the separate video as per your comment. For time being, I will click on this connect button. You can see my SSMS is connected to my database. I will expand the database. Currently I have one database, it's info syntax. In this info syntax database, I will go to tables, and it has one table, that is company list. So now how can you get the data from this table? Don't worry, I will explain the steps to get the data from this table. First step, we need to click on new query option. Then after one session will be open, and you can see the database name is by default it chose info syntax. Sometimes it will come master database by default. For that case, what we need to do, just change the database name on this drop down. On our slide, we know how can you get the data from the table. First we will write select, then star mark. That means I am to retrieve all the records from company list table. Then after we will use from, then next our table name. Here company list. Then after I will click on execute, or I can hit F5 button. Then this query will be executed on my database, and it will fetch the data from the table. So you can see I have retrieved some data. So you can see it has a lot of records in my table. So still this query is executing on my machine. Right now it is completed, but it took almost 24 seconds to complete the execution, and it has more than 10 lakh records on this table. You know, star will retrieve all these columns records, and this table has column like name, domain, year of founded, industry, locality, country, LinkedIn URL, and total employee estimate. The name describe the company name, domain, what is the website URL of this company, and when it was founded. Then type of industry like banking, IT industry, telecommunication. It has different kind of industry. And locality, the location of headquarter of this company. Then country, where the headquarter is present on which country, LinkedIn URL. Then a roughly estimated employee of that company. We will see I want to fetch only the name and domain from this table. So for that case, I will comment out this statement. So I will put double dash. If I hit the education button, it will not give any result set. Now we will fetch the data based on the column name. So for that case, I will write select and after column name and domain from company list. I will hit the education button again. So you can see I have retrieved only these two columns from my table, and this query is almost took 13 seconds to complete the execution. Now we will move to our slide to understand more details about DQL. Column concatenation. What is this means? That means if I want to merge the two columns records in one result, that is called column concatenation. So suppose I have one employee table and it has some records, and employee table has column like first name and last name. Now I want to retrieve the complete name as a one result from the table. So for that case, I will choose column concatenation. So for that, we will use plus separator for concatenating the two columns records or more than two columns record. We will see the same on our SQL Server. If you want to write one more query on different session, so for that, again you need to click on new query or control N. So it will open new file or new session for you to write the query on there. Our requirement to get some data like write a query to find out total number of employees are working on each company with complete statement. So for that, we will write select total employee estimate. Then after I will use plus operator, then single quote, and I will write number of employee are working on. Then I will go the single quote, then again plus operator, and after name. So this is our column name, and the last one is also our column name. But this is our string. All these data will concatenate with each other, and it will give appropriate message to us. Once I hit the F5 button, then we will get the result with appropriate message. So our result is came on our screen. We can read the first result. More than 7 lakh number of employees are working on IBM. More than 3 lakh number of employees are working on Tata Consultancy Services. So you got the concatenation column. But here I have seen one problem actually. The column name is not coming anything, and it is giving like no column name. If you want to change or if you want to assign some column name on this, how can you do that? For that, SQL Server have one concept that is called column alias. And to change some proper column name for this result, simply I will keep one space, then after I will write the column name. So and to rename this no column name to employee result details. You can see we got the column name, but this column is physically not present in our table. This is virtual column name, or this concept we are called as column alias. Here we have one problem actually. We can read this column name is employee result details. It has 3 words, but there is no space between each word. If I put space on these 3 words, then what is happening? It is giving the error. Incorrect syntax near result. You can see if I run this query, we will get the error message. Incorrect syntax near result. Avoid this error. What we will do? We will keep these 3 words in single quote. So here the SQL will consider as this is a string. If I run this query, we will get the result right now, and we can see the column name. It has proper word actually, employee result details, and they have space between these words. Now we will write the same query with edge keyword. So here also we will get the same result, and this is the proper statement for column alias, and edge is the optional one. So if you don't want to put edge keyword, so it is perfectly fine to get the result for the column alias. Actually, why it is needed to use the column alias? So here we will get this type of question on your interview. review, because sometimes the column name are not meaningful name. So that time what the database developer is there, he can wrote the query with column alias. The result will come with proper heading. Now we will move to our slide to understand some more concept about DQL. Select statement can perform two type of job. One is selection and another is projection. Projection again divided into two type: column wise projection, row wise projection. Selection means it will retrieve all the records from the table. If you use star mark, so that time you will get all the result as a result set. Projection, the first one is column wise projection. As per our required column, details will fetch from the table. That is called column level projection. Our company list table has almost 5 columns are present in company list, but we can see in this statement you have fetched only 2 columns data. So this type of statement we can call as column wise projection. On other hand, we will retrieve required row from the table based on the condition or where clause. We can see this result. I have retrieved all the records from the company list table. It has almost 10 lakhs records or more than 10 lakhs records. But here I don't want all these records, and we can see the country is United States, India, Ireland, so on so. But here I want to see only those company are belongs to India only. So that time we will use row level projection. We will cover on this on our next slide. Clauses in DQL. In DQL statement we have so many clauses like where, group by, having, order by. First we will understand where clause. It is used to extract only records that fulfill the specified condition. What the condition present inside the where clause? If that condition is satisfied, based on that the result set will be prepared. Now we will do the experiment on the same. So now I came to my SQL Server. Earlier we have this select statement. Just I will put where clause and I will use country. Then I have used equal operator. Then after I have passed the India as a string. So we will discuss operator and data type on our next chapter. So don't worry about this. Just remember whatever the data you are keeping inside the single quote, these are the string. So once I run this statement, we will get only those company are belongs to India. Almost more than 30,000 records present in this table whose country name is India. I want to see those company are belongs to India and these are the banking industry. So for that we have already wrote country equal to India. One more condition we will add in this where clause. For that case we will use and then after industry equal to banking. Then I will run this query. I have only get 120 records because these two conditions are satisfied for these records. You can see industry and country, banking and India. So I think you got very good knowledge about this where clause. Now we will move to our slide. Then group by. Group by clause is used in conjunction with the select statement to arrange identical data into groups. Group by clause is often used with aggregate function like max, min, sum, average to group the result set by one or more columns. Now we will see the same thing on our SQL Server. How can you use the group by clause? If you talk about like this, how many companies are belongs to banking domain? So here I will use count function. So it will give the result those industry are belongs to banking domain. So here 10,160 companies are belongs to banking domain. But here only I have got one result. Now I will change to the industry type is computer software. So now the result is changed because I have changed the industry for increasing the size of this environment. So we can increase the percentage. Then the size of the letter will increase automatically. You can see the letter size is increased right now. And this object explorer also you can hide from this screen. Understand the group by clause. We need to see this example. Write the query to get the industry and the industry wise total number of company. So that means how many companies are belongs to IT industry and how many companies are belongs to retail or media production or so on. So we have almost 10 lakh records. So it has different categories of industry. So for that we will write the select statement. First I will type the select industry, then comma, then I will use count. So it will give the sum of the result. Then I will use from company list. Okay, here group by clause. Once you run this statement, we will get the result. I can rename this count the name, number of company. Once I run this query, I have got the result. You can see based on the industry, the number of count is displaying on another column. And here 15,665. Companies are belongs to retails industry. 7,457 companies are belongs to medical device. Similarly, other data also are there on our result. Now the question will arise like this: can you use where clause with group by clause? Then answer is yes. We can use where clause as well as group by clause. Suppose here we will modify this question. We have seen the industry and industry wise total number of companies. So here we will add one more condition. Write the query to get the industry and industry wise total number of company. Those company belongs to India. So that means we will use the where clause here. Just we will modify the same query. Here we will add where clause country equal to India. Then after the group by clause. This is the sequence. First select will come. Then after where clause. Then after group by clause. Once I run this one, we got the result industry and number of company, and all those company are belongs to India. So how can you verify this? Just we will write it here, comma, then country in strings. I have got the error. The column company list dot country is invalid select list because it is not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause, because this is not aggregated function and this column we have not mentioned in group by. So due to that it is giving the error. So I have added the country in group by clause. Once I hit the run button, we got the result. Industry type is accounting. 169 companies are there in India. Animation 71 companies are there in India, and all these data we can check by the result. So I think we got the clear picture on group by clause. Now we will move to our slide to understand more details about SQL. Next, having clause. Having clause was introduced in SQL to allow the filtering of query result based on the aggregate functions and grouping, because where clause cannot be used with aggregate function. Now we will move to our SQL Server to understand this having clause uses. We will use the same example, but we will add one more condition here. Write the query to get the industry and industry wise total number of company. Those company belongs to India and total number of company above 100. So that means we have added this condition, and what it's telling, total number of company should be more than 100. So let's try this one by using and. Then after we will use the aggregate function, count function, then name greater than 100. Let execute this query. It is giving the error. A aggregate may not appear in where clause unless it is in subquery content in having clause. So that means it is not allowed to use in this where clause. That is the reason the having clause is coming to the picture. Now we will write the having. Then we will use the same condition. Count name is greater than 100. Then we have got the result, and we can see the number of company. All these are more than 100. Now we will move to our slide to understand. The last clause is order by. Order by clause is used to sort the result set in ascending or descending order. Now we can see our result. We have retrieved the data from the company list. This year of founded is not in proper order. For that case, we will use the order by clause against on this column. So I will use order by year underscore founded. So once I run this query, it is coming in ascending order. So if you not mention anything, it is giving the result in ascending order. Now how can you change this one to descending order? For that case we will use descending keyword. Now we have fetched the data on descending order. So you can see the years of founded. It is decreasing or descending order manner. I'm going down, the date is decreasing. If you use ASC keyword, so it is defining the explicitly ascending order. Same thing we can achieve without this keyword. By default the result will come as ascending order. We will use the same example. So here I want to change the order of number of company. So order by, I will use count name. So you can see the number of company is in ascending order. Now again I will move to the previous query. So here you can think order by clause will applicable for the integer column. No, you can apply this one in against the string value also. So if I change to name, this is our company name. So if you run this query, so name will be coming in ascending order. It will come as dictionary manner. So like this the order by will work. You can apply also multiple columns. So I can use industry in this statement, but it will give the first columns on high priority, then second column. So if duplicate number of company will come, so that time it will use the second row in less priority. So we will use the condition where country equal to India. I've changed to order by to founded year, and I don't want to see those are belongs to null. So right now there is no null records in founded year, and the founded year is coming in ascending order. We will apply order by clause on multiple columns. So I will use the comma separator, then I will use name. Once I execute this one, it will be ascending order with founded year. Then next the column will be on ascending order. These two companies are founded on 1828, and these companies name are followed on or dictionary manner. Similarly, we can see this example also. So how it is working? What is the first column will give the high priority, and the second column is less priority as compared to the first column. So again I will move to our previous query. So this is our completely select statement, and it has all these clauses, and it will follow the order of this sequence. So then it will work. Otherwise we will get the error. Suppose if you change group by clause before the where clause, so it will give the error. So we need to follow the order of the clause. Up to here we have understand complete syntax of select statement, but we have not discussed yet the distinct and top n. What is this? Let's understand the distinct and why you need to use distinct. So I have one employee table. In this table I have some column as well as I have some row. In that table I have some duplicate records in my table. So for example, the first row have the data like R1. In second row it has R2 data. Third row it has R1 data, and fourth row it has R5 data. In this table the first row data and third row data are duplicated. So if you want to remove this duplicate record on our result set, so that time we need to use distinct. So distinct means distinct is used in select statement to remove the duplicate record on result set. So we will understand the same thing in our SQL Server. I will move to the SQL Server. Already you know we have one table that is column list. I fetched the data. I don't want to fetch all the record. I want to fetch only the country's data. So I will change to star mark to my column name, that is country. In my table it has almost more than 10 lakhs records. When I search the country from the company list, so all these records are fetching on row basis. So that means you can see United States is coming multiple times. Similarly other country like India, France, all other country also it's coming duplicated manner. If I want to remove these duplicate records on my result set, so that time I will use distinct, but you need to follow the select statement. Then after you have to use distinct, then only it will work. So I have wrote the statement select distinct country from my company table. Once I hit the run button or F5 button, so it is fetched the record from the table, but now you can see I have fetched only 227 rows records because all these duplicate records are removed from my data set due to I have used the distinct on my select statement. So I will use order by. So now result is coming in alphabet order. So I think you have understand the distinct and how can you use the distinct in our select statement. Now second one is top n. The select top clause is used to specify the number of record to returns on our result set. It is very useful on large tables with thousands of records. Returning a large number of records can impact the performance of our application. So that time we can use that top in our select statement. Now we will see the same thing on our SQL Server. I will remove the column. I will use the star here. I want to retrieve all these records from the table, and also I will remove the order by clause. So here we can see I am fetching all these records from the company list, and the query is still running in my system. Now see, it took almost 24 seconds to complete this query execution. Now I want to retrieve only 10 records from this table. So for that case I will use top. N means it is the number from 1 to n. So I will use 10. Then after I will execute this query. See, it return the result within second. You can see the timing. It's all these are 0 only right now. But earlier it took almost 24 seconds to complete the query execution. So it is impacted our performance, and it has returned only 10 records from this table. We have covered all these clauses and the syntax of select statement. Still, if you have any query on this TQL, please share your query in comment box on this video. So I will clarify the same as soon as possible. We will move to our next slide to understand another sublanguage, data definition language, or that is also called DDL. A data definition language is a sublanguage of SQL which is responsible to create and modify the structure of objects in a database. These database objects include table, indexes, users, views, schemas, etc. Data definition language is also known as data description language in some context. DDL provides the following statements for manipulating the database object: create, alter, drop, truncate, rename. So earlier we have discussed DQL. So there we have fetched the data from the table. But here the data definition language, we will understand how can you create the table. So how can you change the description of object and how can you drop the object in database. So these are belongs to data definition language. On our next slide, we will understand syntax of DDL. Create. This command builds a new object and has a predefined syntax. So let's understand how can you create a table in our database. So first we will write create table name. Then after we need to mention the column details in the bracket. Inside this bracket we need to follow like column name, data type. And if required, you have to mention the size of the data type. Similarly, we need to follow others also. Here we can mention up to n number of column. So now we will move to our SQL Server to understand how can you create the table in our database. I have already connected my database to info syntax. Here we can verify either any table or not in our database. So for that we need to expand the database. Then after we need to expand info syntax database. We will go to the tables. Right now it has only one table in my database. Company list table is already exist in our database. Now we will use the create statement for creating one new table in our info syntax database. Create table, then after employee, then after we need to start your bracket. Inside this bracket we need to mention the column details. For employee ID, I will mention ID, then data type integer type. I will mention the first name. In short form I will mention f name. This is string type, so I will mention varchar, mention the size of data type. Don't worry, we will discuss about the data type on our next chapter. I have mentioned the first name, which is f name, and size is 50. Whenever you are entering the data into this employee table, so that time the first name should be less than or equal to 50 character. Otherwise we will get the error from the database. Similarly, I will mention the last name as L name, and this column also varchar, and size is 50. Then after I will close the bracket. So this is the complete syntax to create the table in SQL Server database. Then after I will execute this command. You can see command completed successfully. That means the employee table is created in our database. Now go to this Object Explorer, right click on table, then click on refresh button. You can see our new table employee is created in our database. Now we will move to our slide to understand other syntax in DDL. Next is our alter. An alter command modifies a existing database table or existing database object. This command can add up additional column, drop existing column, and even change the data type of column in a database table. We will understand the alter syntax. We need to follow the syntax like alter table. We have to mention your table name. If you want to add one column in your existing table, so that time we need to follow the add. Then after we need to follow the column details, column name and its data type with its size if it's required. Other than that, if you want to modify the column details, so that time we need to follow alter. We need to mention column. This is very important. Then command will be understand you are going to modify the column details in this table. So modification only allow to change the data type of the column. So here we need to mention the existing column name, then after the new data type what you require. Similarly, if you are going to drop any column from the existing table, so that time we need to follow the above line, then after drop, and we have to mention the column. So then command will be understand you are going to drop the column from this table. Then after we need to mention the column name. It will allow the multiple column at a single command. So right now we will go to the SQL Server to understand the alter command in DDL. As of now, we have created one new table, that is our employee table, and in employee table we have added 3 columns such as ID, first name, last name. Now I will expand the employee table, then after I will expand the columns. So you can see the column details in this table. Right now I want to add one mobile number column in this table. As you know, just before we have created employee table in our database. So we need to alter the employee table and we have to mention addition of new column. For that we need to follow alter table, table name, add. So here no need to mention the column. Directly we need to describe your column details. For this I will mention mobile number and its data type. I will mention it is worker and size of data type is 10. Once I execute this command, so it will add one new more column in employee table. For this we can right click on columns and after refresh it. So we will get mobile number. Suppose I want to add multiple columns in this employee table. For that case I will follow this syntax, then after address 1, then after data type is worker and size is 100, then address 2, that is also worker type and size is 100, then state, that is also worker. I will mention 50. Once I execute this command, so it will create another 3 columns in my table. So we can see command completed successfully. That means these 3 columns are added in my employee table. For verification, I will refresh the column. We can see another 3 columns are added into this table. Up to here, we have understand how can you add new column in our existing table. Suppose when I am entering the data into this table, the first name size is more than 50 characters. So that time I am facing error from database. But I have to enter the data in my table. For this case, I have to change the size of data type for my first name. For this case, I have to modify the data type size. For that case, I have to follow the syntax alter, then after table, then again table name, then alter the column. This is mandatory. You need to mention the column. Then F name, which is present in my employee table. Then after worker, here I have changed the size 50 to 100. Now I will execute this. So my data type size is changed for this first name column. You can see till now I have not refreshed the columns. The first name size is right now worker 50. Once I refresh this, you can see it is changed to 100. And to delete one existing column from this table. Here, for example, I want to delete this address to column from this employee table. I have to follow the syntax like alter, then after table, then after table name, then drop, then you must have to mention the column, then after column name. So here no need to mention the data type. It's enough to mention the column name. Once you execute this, so you can see the command is completed successful. That means the address to column is deleted from our employee table. Once I refresh this, the column is deleted from the employee table. So right now we have understand create and alter in DDL. Now we will move to our slide to understand other syntax. Remove table. It will delete data as well as structure of a table in SQL. And you need to follow the syntax drop table, then after table name. We will check this command in our SQL server. We will execute the dql command against this table, select star from employee. You can see right now we have 1 records in this table. For the removing table, we need to follow the syntax drop table, table name. This is the syntax to delete the table in our database. You can see I have executed it and command is completed successfully. I will refresh the table. And here only one table is exist right now. Our employee table is no more exist in our info syntax database. I will go to this other session. Again I will execute this select statement. So here I am getting invalid object name employee. So that means it is deleted data as well as it is deleted the description of employee table. Now we will move to our slide to understand other syntax in detail. Truncate table. This command is very similar to the drop command in SQL. It will be deleting all the records of the table and physical remaining the structure. You need to follow the syntax truncate, then after table, again the table name. We will move to our SQL server to understand this syntax. In background, I have created the employee table again for testing the truncate. Once I execute the select statement, I got 1 records from this table. Now we will see the truncate. For this, we need to follow the syntax truncate table and after table name. So truncate statement is executed in our database. Now I will refresh the table. We can see the employee table is still exist in our database. Now I will move to other session to execute the select statement in our database against employee table. So we can see the structure is remaining same, but the data are present in our employee table. Those records are deleted by using the truncate statement. This command is very powerful when we are deleting all the records from the table. Now we will move to our slide to understand other syntax in detail. So here rename a table using sp underscore rename. It is predefined store procedure in SQL Server. We will use the store procedure rename the old table name to new table name. So syntax is execute or exec, that means execute. Then after our store procedure sp underscore rename, then old table name to new table name. Now we will move to our SQL Server to rename our existing table. Right now I have employee table. I want to rename employee to EMP. For this I have to follow execute, then after my store procedure sp underscore rename. It is predefined store procedure. Then after I have to mention the table name. We need to keep this one in single quote employee. Then I use comma separate, then mention your new name of the table. Here I want to change EMP. I wrote the command to rename the table, and after I will execute this command. So it is executed successfully. Now we will refresh our table. Now see, our employee table is changed to EMP. I will expand this. The same columns are present in my EMP table. That means only it is renamed from employee to EMP. Again I came to slide to understand how can you rename the column in existing table. Rename a column using sp underscore rename. Earlier you have used this store procedure rename the table in our database. Same store procedure we will use here to rename the column from old name to new name. Here little bit syntax is changed. We will follow the execute. Then after store procedure name, that is sp underscore rename. Here we need to mention the table name and to which table column we want to change, that one we need to mention here. Followed by dot symbol. Then separated by comma. We have to mention the new column name. Again separate by comma. Here we are going to change the column. So we need to mention the column. I will move to SQL Server. Here we have EMP table. Inside this table, you have columns like ID, first name, last name, mobile number, address one, state. I want to change column F name to first name. So if someone see our table, he or she could not able to understand F name. But we have created this table so we can understand this is our first name. But other than ourselves, nobody can understand what is the meaning of this column. So for that reason, I want to change F name to first name. So we will follow the steps, execute, then after sp underscore rename, then after we will follow the table name, then dot, then after our column name, here F name, then after our new column name, first name, then separate by comma, then we need to mention column. Now we will execute this. So it is executed successfully in our database. We will refresh it. We will see our column name is changed from F name to first name. In our introduction section, we have discussed SQL Server command is not case sensitive. So here you can see when I created table, alter the table, and we did many operations. Sometimes I have followed the uppercase and sometimes I have followed the lowercase. So it is not impacting anything in our database. Now we have completed DDL and earlier we have covered DQL. Now we will start another sub-language, that is DML, or we can call it as data manipulation language. DML basically used for manipulate the data in our database. So what is that? Actually we have created the object by using DDL. Once the object is created in our database, then we will insert the records. We can update the records and we can also delete the records from that object. That one we will perform through by using data manipulation language. A data manipulation language, DML, is sublanguage of SQL responsible to insert, update, delete or manipulate database objects record. DML provides the following statement for manipulating the database object: insert, update, delete. We have created the employee table in our database by using DDL commands. Now we want to insert some records into the table. We will use insert command. Sometimes we have inserted wrong records in our table. If someone want to change the records, so that time time we will use update statement. If sometimes data is not useful for our future, so there is no meaning to keep the data in our table because it will take unnecessary memory in our database. For that reason, we need to delete the record from our table. For that case, we will use delete statement. So I think we got the basic knowledge about DML. Now we will move to our next slide to understand the syntax of these statements. Syntax in DML: insert data into table. We will use this syntax when we are going to insert the records in our table. Insert into, then after we will mention our table name, we will mention our column name. Then after we will use values, then what value you are going to insert for that column, and we need to follow the sequence of this column name. The column name are optional. If you not pass the column name, then we need to mention all the columns value in this statement. We will move to our SQL Server to insert some records in our employee table. Now I came to SQL Server and we will insert some data into this employee table. In this employee table, you have ID, first name, last name, city, and state. These are the columns present in employee table. So first we will check if there any data present in employee table or not. So for that, I will right click on employee table. I will click select top 1000 rows. Here we can see there is no records in this table. So now we will insert some records into this employee table by using insert statement. So for that, I will create one more session. So here I will type insert into my table name, that is employee. Then after I will mention the column name, ID, first name, last name, then city, and after my state. Then after I will use values. Then here I have to follow the value by the order of the what I mentioned the column name. First I will use the ID, then after first name Rio, last name Ben, then city is Hyderabad, and state is Telangana. So we can see the ID is integer type, so I have mentioned the integer value, and the other columns are first name, last name, city, and state. This field are string, so I have mentioned the first name as Rio, and that value is inside the single quote. Similarly, I follow for the last name, city, and state. I mention the insert the single quote because these are our string value. So this is the complete insert statement. Now I will execute the statement. Then data will be inserted into my table. You can see one row is affected. That means these data are inserted into my table. For verification, you can select the data from this employee table. You can see there is one record present in employee table what we inserted into this table. In this statement, we have mentioned all the column names. Suppose if I miss any column name in this list, so what will happen? Similarly, I will follow the statement insert into employee, then after ID, then first name. Here I have not mentioned the last name. Directly I came to city, then after state. So for this case, I need to follow this order only. That means we need to skip the last name value. ID is 2, then first name is Scott, and city is Chennai, state is Tamil Nadu. If I want to execute this statement, so I need to select this insert statement. Here what will happen? It will not execute this first statement. It will execute only the second statement. I will click on the execute button. So here we can see one row affected. So that means this line is executed and it is inserted into my table. Again I will move to this select statement. I will rerun this. So now we can see the Scott record is inserted into our employee table. But here we have skipped the last name. So the last name is coming as null. Now we will see another example. We will insert the data into the employee table, but we will change the order of the column name. So here I will mention first name. I have not mentioned the ID. I have mentioned first name, then after city, then after I have mentioned the ID. Here only I have selected 3 columns, that is first name, city, and ID. So value. After the value, I will not follow the order I have mentioned on this statement. So first I will choose the ID, the employee. Then after I have mentioned the first name. At last I have mentioned city name as Mumbai. So once I execute this statement, you can see I got the error. What is the error? Here I have mentioned the column name as ID and I have passed Mumbai. When you created the table, so that time we have mentioned ID columns data type is integer. But in this statement, you have passed the string value into this integer. So due to that, it is getting the error. Conversion failed when converting the worker value Mumbai to data type integer. String cannot be converted to the integer. Due to that, it is getting the error. Avoid this error order, we need to follow what we mention the column name order inside this value. So first name I have to mention King, then after city Mumbai, at the last ID of the employee. So here I mention the ID is 3. Again I will select that insert statement, and after I will execute it. You can see one row is affected. That means this record is inserted into our employee table. For verification, we will rerun this select statement. Now see, our King employees record is inserted into our table. So I think you got the idea on insert statement. When we discussed the insert statement, I also informed you this column name are not mandatory. Now we will see without column name, we will insert the data, insert into employee. Then after directly I came to the values. So here I will mention the employee ID is 4. Then after first name is Sapna, last name is Sahu, city name is Buguda, and state Odisha. I will select the last insert statement, and after I will click on the execute button. So one row is affected. That means Sapna's record is inserted into our table. You can see the last record is inserted in our table. Now what happened? Suppose I have not followed the order of the value as the column name. Now I have mentioned 3 columns value inside this insert statement. First name Mythos, then city Bangalore, and the employee ID is 5. But we can see I have not mentioned the employee column details. Now I will execute this statement. Here I got the error. Column name or number of supplied value does not match the table definition. It is expecting 5 value inside this insert statement. I have mentioned last name is Roy and state is Karnataka. But here I have not followed like ID, first name, last name, city, and state. Let's try to execute this insert statement. So here it is getting the error. Conversion failed when converting the worker value mythos to data type integer. What is happening? The first value is expecting as ID of the employee because our ID column is integer data type, and here we have passed the value as string. So due to that it is failed the insert statement. Now I will change this one to integer value. So now I have mentioned ID, first name, last name, city, and state name. Now I will execute this. So you can see one row is affected and also it is inserted into this table. Now suppose anyone don't want to pass any column value into insert statement. Can you insert the data without column details by using insert statement? Yes, we can do. That time we need to pass the null. So here I don't want to pass last name and state. So that time what we will do, here I have to mention insert into employee values, and after ID of the employee, then first name. Here Raj is the first name, but I don't want to pass the last name of the employee. For that case I have to mention null. Null means nothing, there is no value, so I have to mention the null. Then after city name is Delhi, then after state null. So here 5 value are there in this insert statement. Once I execute this, so it will affected one row. See, Raj's record is inserted into our table. We came to know if you don't want to pass the column name in insert statement, so that time we must need to pass all the value in that statement. I will suggest you don't use the insert statement without the column name, because if you are using like this type of statement in your application, in future someone changed the description of the table. That means if someone is added some column into this table, so that time this type of insert statement will be failed and it will give the error in your application. So better to use the insert statement by using column details as well as the value. And one more difference is there. Here insert statement will be follow the order of the column name. But if you are change the order, so it will not impact anything on your insert statement. It is very important. Use the complete insert statement with column name. Now we will move back to our slide to understand some more details about DML operation. Next is update tables record. Update need to follow this syntax. Update table name, and set column 1 equal to value 1, column 2 equal to value 2, so on so. Then after where the condition. Now we will move to our SQL server. This is my employee tables records. You can check the third row. The employee ID is 3. Here I want to change the state. null to Maharashtra. So what I have to do here, I have to perform the update statement on employee table. On what basis? Based on the ID, because in any company the employee ID is unique. So due to that reason, I will follow the ID. Suppose this is not employee table, so that time I have to find out which is the unique record on this table. So based on the unique record, I will perform any update statement to do any changes. So now I will open one more session. So I will follow this syntax: update, then after table name, here employee, then set state. I want to change the state to Maharashtra. Then I will put the where condition, ID is 3. So once I execute this line, so one row is affected. Now we will verify this. You can see the employee ID 3 right now state is having Maharashtra. It's very important when you are doing any update operation against any table. So that time we need to check before you execute the update statement where condition is there or not. Sometimes if you miss the where condition, the data will be updated on complete table. That means if I miss this where condition, the state is Maharashtra will update on all the records of my employee table. It will make the issue on our application. So make sure when you are doing the update statement where condition should be there with proper condition. Now we will discuss delete tables record. So here we will delete the data from the table. Delete from table name. Then after we need to follow the where condition. I have moved to SQL Server. Now we can see we have 6 records in my employee table. Now I want to delete Raj's record in my employee table. For this I will write delete from my table name employee, then where condition, here ID equal to 6. Once I execute this, it is affected one row. Now you can see the employee ID 6 is not present in our table. That means this data is deleted from our employee table. Here also it's very important when we are performing the delete operation in our table. We need to verify the where condition is properly there or not. If you miss this where condition, it will delete all these records from our table. That will also make the problem if you are performing the delete operation. Suppose let's think if I miss this where condition and it is deleted all these records. So that means it will work like our truncate statement. But a difference is there. Delete from table name, so it will delete all the record and it will keep the description, and truncate will also do the same operation, but truncate will execute fast as compared to delete query. So if any requirement came to delete all the tables records, so that time we need to choose the truncate statement. When you are going to delete some specific record, so that time we need to follow the delete state. Truncate cannot be delete specific record from our table. So these are the difference between delete and truncate. Please keep remember this difference. Sometimes you will get this type of question in your interview. Now we will move to our next slide to understand some advanced syntax in DML. If we want to copy data from one table to another table, so here insert into table 2, we need to mention column name such as column 1, column 2, column 3 of the table 2. Then after select column 1, column 2 and column 3 or star mark if you want to select all the data from table 1. So here it will copy the data from table 1 to table 2. Here I have two tables, that is T1 and T2. Right now I want to copy the data from T1 to T2. So that time I will follow this statement. If both the table has same description, so that time I will follow the star mark. If sometimes I have created another table, that is T3. T3 has 4 columns, that is C1, C2, C3 and C4. But we can see in our T1 we have only 3 columns, C1, C2, C3. So here description is not matching with each other. So that time I have to manually mention the column name in this statement. Now we will move to our SQL Server to insert data from one table to another table. In background, I have created one table as employee 1. You can see this description is matching with our employee table. Now I will move data from employee to employee 1. So for that case, I will use this statement insert into employee 1. Then after I will use the select from employee table. If I want to move all these records into this new table, that time no need to mention where clause. If you want to move only some records based on some condition, suppose I will mention I want to move whose employee ID is 1, that record only I want to move to employee 1 table. So here I will mention ID equal to 1. So you can see one row is affected. Now I came to this other session and I run this statement. Reuse data is moving into this employee 1 table. If I skip this where clause, so that time it will move all the record from employee table to employee 1. Here we can see double dash is used for comment the line in SQL Server. If anything you don't want to execute in SQL Server, so that time you can use double dash. Earlier we have moved the data, employee ID is 1. Now I have executed this statement. So 5 row affected. All the employee records inserted into this employee 1 table. Now we will rerun this one. Earlier we have executed the insert statement. So that's why the first record is present in our employee 1. The second statement, it has inserted all the record from employee table. We will move to our slide. Here both the tables are exist in our database. Now if the new table is not exist in our database, so that time how can you do? Create the table as well as copy the data from one table to another. So that time we will follow the below syntax. Select star from into our new table, then from old table, then after we will use where condition. If you move some records based on this condition, then only you can use the where condition. Otherwise, it will take all the record from the old table where it will insert into this table. We will move to our SQL Server. I will refresh the table. We can see right now we have 3 tables: company list, employee and employee 1. Now we will create one more table is employee 2. It will create the similar structure of employee table and it will insert all the record from the employee table. For that, we will use the syntax select star into, then after our new table employee 2, then from employee. I will create the employee 2 table. I will move only the employee ID is 2. You can see one row is affected. Now I will refresh the table. You can see one more table is created. Then after I will query to get the data from employee 2 table. So you can see the employee 2 is created by the above statement and also inserted one record as per this where condition. Right now I have commented the where condition and employee 2 is already present in our database. If you execute this statement, so what will happen? We'll see. So here it is getting the error. There is already an object named employee 2 in the database, because in this statement it will create the table as well as it will insert the data into this new table. But our case employee 2 is already created and the object name is unique, so it will not allow to create the table in our database. If we change the table name employee 2 to employee 3 and employee 3 is not existing in our database, so it will work fine and it will copy all the data from employee table and it will insert into the employee 3 table. Now you can see employee 3 is created in our database as well as it is inserted the data from employee table. You can verify by using the select statement. You can see employee 3 is created and also data is inserted. Suppose anyone want to create the table from existing table, but they don't want to copy the data from the old table. So that time what we will do, here we will create employee 4 and we will uncomment the where condition. In where condition we will write some invalid condition, so it will not satisfy that condition, then only it will copy the description from the existing table and it will not copy the data from our old table. So what is the invalid statement? Like I will write 1 equal to 2. So here the 1 never equal with 2. So it is invalid statement. It will not copy the data from the existing table. Now I will execute this line. You can see 0 row is affected. You can see employee 4 is created as like employee table. Here there is no data inserted into this table due to we have mentioned the invalid condition. Currently you have covered DQL, DDL, DML, but still we are not covered another 2 sublanguages in our SQL Server. If you are getting any syntax error on your SQL Server, then we can visit our website www.infosyntax.com. So this is our website. Here we can click SQL Server. Then after we will get lot of posts regarding SQL Server. Then we can choose your subject. I will choose here data manipulated language. Once you click here, we will get all these these details about DML in SQL Server, and also we will get all these syntax, how to write the query in your SQL Server. We will get also some example to understand more deeply on that subject, and also end of this post we will get some reference link we can follow for more understanding. Again, we will move to our slide to understand our next sub language in SQL Server, data control language or DCL. Data control language we can call also DCL. It includes commands such as grant and revoke, which mainly deal with the rights, permission and other control of database system. Grant and revoke are two commands are used in data control language in SQL. For more understanding, I will draw the picture to understand why you need to use DCL in SQL. This is our database, and inside this database we have tables, view, store procedure, everything are present in this database. And opposite side we have two user, U1 and U2. Both user are trying to access our database. U1 and U2 can access the database once the authentication process is succeeded. Then only they can able to access our database. So here they could not able to access all these objects without DBA permission. What is DBA? DBA is database administrator. DBA team will manage the user and they will provide the access to this database. Data control language we will use for restrict the database from the unauthorized user. And also based on the access, the user will be operate against the database. Data control language deals with the command used in SQL that permit a user to access, modify or work on different privileges in order to control the database. It allows the database owner to give access, revoke access and change the given permissions as and when required. DCL is basically used for providing data security on our database. DCL commands allows a user to restrict the user or role from the accessing the database. So whenever we are created the user in our database, so that time we need to provide some access to that user. So that time we will use the grant command. If you want to remove the access from that user, so that time you need to use revoke command. Syntax in DCL, the first command is grant. We will use like grant privileges on object name to user or roles. So grant we will provide the access to user or our role against that object name. What the object are there in our database, so that time we will provide the privileges, what type of permission we need to provide this user. So that time we will use grant command. Grant is a DCL command used to grant or give access to security privileges to specific database user. It is mostly used to restrict user access to insert, delete, select, update, execute, alter or to provide privileges to users data. Revoke is a DCL command that used to revoke the permission or access that was granted via grant command. It is mostly used to revert back to the time when no access was specified. That means withdrawing the permission that was authorized to carry out specific tasks. So revoke syntax like revoke then same privileges on object name from user or roles. So here revoke we will use for the removing the permission from the database. Now we will move to our SQL Server. We will check out these commands in our database. I already log in into SQL Server by using my ID, and this ID is having the permission like database administrator. First we will create login details in our SQL Server. For that we will write the query create login. Then after your login name, here I will type my login. Type with password equal to your password, what we want to give the password. Then execute this command. Then after create your user details in your SQL Server. I'll change my database to info syntax. Create user, then username, info syntax user for login, my login. But we have created the previous command that we will used in this line. Then after we will execute this command. So here our user ID also created. Now go to Object Explorer, click on Connect Object Explorer. Here we need to change SQL Server authentication. Then after enter your login details. My login password is pass@123. Click on connect. You are getting some error. Cannot connect to database engine. So might be you also faced similar kind of issue. About this issue, you need to do one configuration. Go to this Object Explorer, choose your database engine, right click on there and click on property. Then site menu, you need to choose security. Here server authentication. By default it will Windows authentication mode. But here we are use SQL Server authentication mode. But our configuration only have this Windows authentication mode. Due to that login is failed, so we need to choose the second option, SQL Server and Windows authentication mode. Click on OK. Next, we need to restart the service manually. Just right click on the database engine, then restart. It will take few seconds. Once it restarted, now we will reconnect our database through SQL Server authentication. I'll choose SQL Server authentication. Then I will type my login details. You can see my database is connected right now. You can see this one is login through my Windows authentication, but second one, that is my SQL Server authentication. I will expand the database. Then again I will expand this info syntax database. I could not able to see any tables in my info syntax DB because we have not giving any permission to this user. Due to that, it is not getting any details on this table list. Similarly, I will choose my Windows authentication. I will expand the tables. Here lot of tables are there. For that, we will use our DCL command to provide the permission to info syntax user. We will use grant. Then we need to mention the privileges. So we will use select. It is one kind of privileges. On object name. Object name means we need to mention tables. View, we need to mention it here. I will provide the select privilege to my company list table to info syntax user. Once I execute this one, now this info syntax user got the permission to get the data from company list table. Means he can use select statement against this table. Now we will refresh it again. You can see right now our company list table is visible on info syntax DB by SQL Server authentication. Now I will disconnect my Windows authentication. I'll close it here. I'll do select star from company list. Here we need to choose info syntax database. Now I can able to get the data from company list table. Let's understand different type of privileges. Whenever a user is created in database, user is not going to be activated unless and until some privileges are assigned. Privileges are two types. One is system privilege, other is object privilege. System privileges are those which are granted individual object, what can be done by object and what cannot be do. The frequently used system privileges are create table, create view, similarly index and procedure. The privileges list are like execute, update, select, delete, alter, all. In our previous example, we have used select. We have not used alter, delete, update. We will move to our SQL Server. Again, we will try to insert some data into this company list table. So this is my sample insert statement. Currently, we have the permission for select against this user. Once I run this query, I am getting the error. Insert permission was denied on the object company list. So that means we need to give the permission to info syntax user for insert the data into this table. So for that, we need to modify our grant permission in our database. So for that, I have to move to my DBA user. Earlier we have given these privileges. Now we will add some extra like insert, update and delete, and command is executed successful. That means this info syntax user have these 4 privileges against this company list table. We will move to our SQL Server authentication. The same query I will re-execute it in my SQL Server. You can see inserted into this company list table. That means it is giving security to our database. Unauthorized person cannot do any kind of operation in our database. We will use the where condition domain equal to test.com and condition we will put here founded. We got our inserted data. Now we will perform the update operation against these records. Update, then update table name, set total employee estimate equal to 444. Then after we will use our where condition. Let's see is data is updated or not. You can see our data is updated to the new employee number. So that means update operation also it's working fine for my SQL Server authentication mode. We will remove all these permission from this info syntax user. For that we will use revoke command. Once you execute this, then all these permission removed from this user. I will move to this SQL Server authentication mode. Just I will try to get some data from this employee list. Now I am getting the error. I don't have permission to get the data from this database. We covered the DCL. Now we will move to our last sub-language. It's transaction control language, that is TCL. Transaction control language we can call also TCL. Transaction control language commands are used to handle transaction in the database. These are used to manage the changes made by DML statement and also allow statement to be grouped together into logical transaction. Whenever we are performing any any DML operation against our table, so that time the data will be not saved automatically. If our session is closed due to some exception, so that data will not affected in our table. So whenever we are doing any DML operation, then after we need to follow the TCL command like commit rollback. We will discuss on next slide all these details, but before going to next slide, we need to understand what is the transaction. So transaction is a group of DML statement and it depend with each other. If our transaction is succeeded, that means all these group of DML statements should be executed in our database. If our transaction is failed due to some reason, so that time all these group of DML operation should be failed. Otherwise it will be the problem that data inconsistency will happen. Now we will understand this one through the picture. A1 and A2 are bank account and I want to transfer some money from A1 to A2, and here I am transferring 1000 rupees from A1 to A2. What will happen? What the amount available in A1, once this transaction is completed, that time the available balance minus 1000 rupees. That amount should be updated on my A1 account. Then after what the amount I am transferring to A2, the 1000 rupees I am transferring to A2. So what the available balance are present in A2 account, that time once this transaction is completed, the available amount plus 1000 rupees, that should be updated in A2 account balance. Suppose here currently 5000 rupees available in A1 account and 7000 rupees present in A2 account before the transaction. So once I initiate the transaction, I am transferring the amount. So that time what will happen? The first statement I have to write this available amount minus 1000 rupees. That means 4000 rupees. After this transaction, 4000 rupees should be updated on A1 balance. Now second statement I have to write once this transaction is succeeded, so that time that 1000 rupees should be credited on A2 account. This is before transaction. After this transaction is succeeded, so that time what will happen? Plus 1000 rupees. That means final balance will be 8000. After the transaction, 8000 rupees should be updated on A2 account. So here the first statement, it will deduct the money from A1 account. The second statement, it will credit the same amount to A2 account. So this is one transaction actually. Statement 1 S1 is will do deduct the money from A1 account, and S2 statement will credit the amount into A2 account. Suppose in case this transaction is failed due to some reason, and that time S1 is completed. That means it deducted the money from A1 account, but that moment S2 is not processed yet. That means that amount is not credited into A2 account. So mismatch data will come. So that case the transaction will roll back everything and it will come to initial stage. That means what the 1000 rupees is deducted from A1 account, that time it will credit again into our A1 account. Otherwise it will the problem will occur in our database. It came to our initial stage, so that time we will use rollback. If the transaction is succeeded, that means S1 statement and S2 statement is executed successfully without any problem, then final we will use the commit statement. Then all this data will be saved in our database. Transaction control language is set of special commands that deals with the transaction within the database. Usually they are used to manage transaction within the database. TCL command are also used for managing the consistency of database. Now we'll move to our next slide to understand the syntax of TCL. Save point. The save points commands in TCL is basically used to temporarily save a transaction so that we can roll back to that point whenever required. So we will write save transaction, and after we will provide the save point name. We can mention any kind of name on here. Commit. The commit commands in SQL is used to permanently save any transaction into database whenever we are used any DML operation in our database. Commit, just we need to type commit, then data will be saved in our database. Rollback. The rollback commands in TCL is used for restoring the database to the last committed state. That means rollback commands restores the database to its original state since the last command that was committed. Simply we will write rollback, then what the transaction is initiated, that will be come back to initial stage. We will move to our SQL server to do some experiment on TCL command. I have an employee table in my database, so I have fetched the data from this table. You can see right now 5 data are present in my table. Now we will create one transaction and there we will insert some data. We will cover more details about transaction in our upcoming session. Here just we remember the syntax. How can you write the transaction in our SQL Server? Begin transactions. This is our DML statement. Just we will insert some data into our table. So I have write the statement to insert the data into our employee table. Here you can see ID is 6, name is Sachin and city is Mumbai, and it is present inside this transaction. So again I will run this select statement. Currently it has only 5 records and last ID is 5. Now I executed this transaction. One row is affected. We will go back to our other session. We will try to fetch the data from this table. We can see this select statement is still running in our SQL Server because this is the transaction. Then after we have not executed any TCL command. We have not used commit or also we are not used rollback. If I close this session, it is asking there are uncommitted transaction. Do you wish to commit this transaction? If you click yes, then automatically the commit command will be executed on this session, or if you click on no button, then rollback will be executed automatically inside this session. Right now I will click on no. Now we see just close this session, then data is appeared on this screen. Again we will create the same transaction. If you are doing any DML operation by using transaction, that time the DML statement will not save in our database unless until we provide the commit statement. So now we will try one more time to execute this transaction. We can see one row is affected. Similarly, if I select data from employee, it again it's executing. Now see if I use commit here, this is our TCL command and it not record anything. Just we need to write commit, then execute it on the same session only. You can see command completed successfully and it fetch the data from employee table. Here Sachin's data is appeared on our screen. That means when we perform the TCL command, then after the data is available on employee table. If any transaction is going on our database against any table, that table will be logged by database, so it will avoid the inconsistency result to the user. Again we will do the experiment. Now you see I have created another transaction. In this transaction I am inserting the data in our employee table. The value is like employee ID is 7, employee name is Lalu and city is Patna. So I will run this transaction. So one row is affected when I fetch the data from employee table. So that select statement is running continuously because we are not did any TCL perform on this session. Now I will cancel this execution. This transaction is processing against employee table. So that time that employee table is locked. Due to that reason, the select statement is not giving any result. If you want to fetch what the data currently present in employee table, so that time we need to write no log after the table name. So if I execute this select statement, you can see I fetched the data from employee table, and in this record list Lalu's record is also present in our employee table. Now I will remove the no log keyword. Again I will execute this select statement. See it is processing. I told you whenever the transaction is going on any session, so that time the TCL command should be executed on that session only, otherwise it will be not work properly. So for that we'll create one more session and here I will type commit. Once I execute this one, that commit transaction request has no corresponding begin transaction because the transaction statement is not present on this session. Due to that it is giving the error. But if you go to this session, here begin transaction is there, then after we have DML operation. If I use here any TCL command, then it will work perfectly. Till our select query is running on screen. Now I will use rollback. I don't want to insert this employee's record in my employee table. Now I will click on F5. Then we can see command complete successfully. And here the result is came on our screen. Enter Lalu's record is not containing in this result set. If once you executed the rollback statement, again you execute the same rollback statement, so that time it will give the error. The rollback transaction request has no corresponding begin transaction because what the transaction is created on this session, that transaction we have rollback first time, second time there is no transaction, so due to that it is giving the error. I think we got the idea about commit and rollback. Now we will go to our save point. For that, I will create another session. Initially, I have created one transaction, and inside this transaction, we created two save points. One is S1 and another is S2. As you know the syntax, how can you write the save point? Here we need to follow save transaction S1, that is our save point name. Then after we need to write your DML query, and other save point also we are inserting the records into this employee table. In S1 save point we are inserting employee name as Lalo and city name is Patna. S2 save point we are using employee name is Ranjit and city name is Ranchi. So after we have executed this transaction and two rows are affected in our table. If you execute, it will continuously run in our database because we have not performed any TCL operation after this transaction. Now I have write one if condition and I have passed this truthy statement into this if condition 1 equal to 1, so it will give always truth. So that means it will go to this first begin end block. In real life project there will be the condition. Based on this conditions result, it will go the begin end block or else block, because we have not covered conditional statement in SQL Server. Due to that, I have passed some truthy statement into my if condition. So here it will go to this begin end block, and the first block it has rollback transaction save point S2, and next we need to commit other transactions. So that means once it satisfied this condition, it will come to this line and it will roll back this transaction. That means Ranjit record will not inserted into our table, but Lalu's record will be inserted into our employee table. Once you run this statement, then data will be saved into our table. Now I have run this select statement and Lalu's record is coming in our result set. That means Lalu's record is committed into our table. So I think we got very clear idea about TCL command. We have covered all these sub language in SQL Server. Now we will move to our next slide. So these are the very important question, and most of time you will get this type of question in your interview. So be prepared for your future. The first, what is a DBMS and how is difference from DBMS? Second is what is the difference between SQL and NoSQL? What are the different subsets of SQL? What are some common clauses used with select query in SQL? What are the difference between column wise projection and row wise projection? Drop versus truncate versus delete. Write the query to change data type of column in SQL Server. Write a query to copy the table structure to new table. Explain the process to create new user in SQL Server. What is distributed transaction in SQL Server? When are they used? What is nested transaction? So be prepared yourself, and we can find some of the questions answer in our YouTube channel. We have already posted what is the difference between SQL and NoSQL. So we can find, I will share the link on description, so you can check out that video, and we will provide separate video regarding this interview question as soon as possible. Now we will discuss about our summary of the first chapter. Select statement in SQL Server is used to retrieve data from database and retrieve data stored in the result table as called result set. SQL statement are case insensitive. The select statement can perform two types of jobs such as selection and projection. Projection again divided into two types as column wise projection and row wise projection. This already discussed in our DQL sublanguage. Column alias is a concept through which user can provide duplicate names to an existing column. Column concatenation is concept through which users can concatenation two or more than two columns to get customized output. The distinct keyword is used conjunction with the select statement to eliminate all the duplicate records. Where clause is a concept through which those many records are displayed where a condition is satisfied. It is also called as a row restriction. Order by is last clause of select statement responsible to arrange the record in a proper manner, either ascending order or descending order. DML operation will for manipulate the records in object. When we are performing the DML operation, we can insert, delete, update a record inside the object. Delete will remove all the records or remove the data as per the condition, but object description will be not impact. On the other hand, drop can remove all the records as well as object description. So that means when we are performing the delete operation, so that time it will not delete description of the object, but when we will do the drop operation so that it will remove the record as well as object description. TCL will provide the security to database by helping the commands grant and remove. TCL will be handling the transaction SQL or TSQL. It will help us to consistency of our record. TSQL statement frequently used in store procedure. It will manage group of statement on single transaction. In this chapter, we have discussed overview of Microsoft SQL Server, installation process of SQL Server, as well as 5 different types of sublanguage in SQL. We are going to have an assessment test to quickly check your understanding on SQL Server. We will see you at the next lecture for assessment test. Thank you for watching this session. Please like, share and comment on this video so it will inspire me to make similar kind of video for you. Join us and subscribe to our InfoSyntax YouTube channel.